Sam Whitaker always found solace in solitude. The Blue Ridge Mountains seemed like the perfect place to untangle the web of stress that had consumed his life over the past year. A solo trek was just what he needed. No emails, no calls, just the whispers of the wind and the songs of the birds. By the third day of his trek, Sam felt like he was finally finding his rhythm. The dense trees, the mossy trails, the cool mountain air, everything about the forest seemed to cradle him in its vast, natural embrace. It was here, amidst this serenity, that Sam met Chloe Sanders. She appeared unexpectedly on the trail, walking briskly in the opposite direction. She was petite, with sharp eyes and a nervous energy that seemed out of place in the calm wilderness. When she saw Sam, she slowed and gave him a once-over, her hand instinctively adjusting the strap of her backpack. "You alone?" she asked. Sam nodded, studying her expression. "Yeah, you." Chloe hesitated before answering. "I was last night, wished I hadn't been." There was something in her tone that unsettled Sam. He frowned. "What do you mean?" Chloe glanced back over her shoulder, her voice dropping. "I camped near the ridge last night, heard things, heavy breathing outside my tent, found massive footprints in the dirt this morning. Whatever it wasn't a bear." Sam chuckled nervously, trying to lighten the mood. "Bears can get pretty big." "Not this big," Chloe replied sharply. Her eyes bore into his. "Look, maybe it's nothing, but if you're heading up that way, just be careful." Before Sam could respond, she adjusted her pack and walked away, her pace quickening as if she couldn't put the forest behind her fast enough. Sam couldn't shake Chloe's words as he continued his trek. By late afternoon, he found himself on a winding trail leading up to the ridge she had mentioned. The forest grew denser, the sunlight dimmer, and the air cooler. It was as if the trees themselves were trying to warn him away. That's when he saw the claw marks. They were deep and jagged, gouged into the bark of a towering oak. Sam stopped, running his fingers over the grooves. Bears, he told himself, though the marks were too wide, too deliberate. Nearby, he noticed something else, sticks arranged in crude formations across the trail. They looked like barriers, hastily constructed but purposeful. Sam's unease grew, but curiosity propelled him forward. He had always prided himself on being level-headed, dismissive of ghost stories and campfire tales. But now, in the growing shadows of the forest, he felt a prickle of doubt. As the sun dipped below the horizon, he decided to set up camp on a flat patch of ground just off the trail. He unpacked his tent and cooking gear, his ears straining for any unusual sounds. The forest was eerily quiet, no birds, no rustling leaves, just the faint whisper of the wind. That's when Chloe reappeared. She emerged from the trees, her face pale and her eyes wide. "You're still here?" she asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. Sam straightened, startled. "Chloe, I thought you were heading back." "I was," she said, her gaze darting around the campsite. "But I couldn't shake the feeling I was being followed. I doubled back, thinking I'd find, someone else." Sam's stomach tightened. "What do you think is out here?" Chloe shook her head. "I don't know, but I don't think it wants us here." Despite his unease, Sam offered to share his campsite. Chloe reluctantly agreed, setting up her tent nearby. They spoke little as darkness enveloped the forest. The silence between them was heavy, punctuated only by the crackle of the campfire. Sam awoke to the sound of something large moving outside his tent. He froze, his heart hammering in his chest. Whatever it was close. He could hear the crunch of leaves, the snap of twigs, guttural grunts echoed through the still night. He reached for his flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness as he unzipped the tent. The fire had burned down to embers, casting faint shadows across the campsite. Chloe's tent was still zipped, but the sounds continued, circling them. Then something heavy thudded against a nearby tree. Sam turned his flashlight toward the noise, but the beam caught only empty forest. He scanned the ground and saw them, enormous footprints pressed deep into the dirt. At dawn, the campsite was a mess. Sam's gear had been rummaged through, his food bag torn apart. The footprints were clearer now in the morning light, each one almost twice the size of his boot. But the most chilling discovery was Chloe's tent. It was empty. Panic surged through Sam as he called out for Chloe. He followed faint drag marks leading down a narrow trail. His mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. He reached the edge of the ridge where the forest opened up to a steep drop, and there, standing on the ridge, was the creature. It was massive, its body covered in dark, matted hair. Its broad shoulders and powerful frame dwarfed any animal Sam had ever seen. The creature stood upright, its posture eerily human. But it was the eyes that froze Sam in place, dark, intelligent, and unblinking. The creature let out a low growl, its lips pulling back to reveal jagged teeth. Sam's breath caught in his throat. He raised his arms, trying to appear larger, though every instinct screamed at him to run. Then it roared. The sound was deafening, reverberating through the forest like a clap of thunder. Sam staggered backward, his legs shaking. But the roar was interrupted by something equally chilling, Chloe's scream echoing from the forest below. The creature turned its head slightly, distracted by the noise. Sam seized the moment, grabbing a nearby rock and hurling it past the creature. The sound drew its attention just long enough for Sam to dart down the trail toward Chloe's scream. He found her tangled in brush at the bottom of the ridge, her face pale and scratched. "I thought it had me," she stammered, her voice trembling. "Let's go," Sam urged, pulling her to her feet. They didn't look back as they sprinted down the mountain, crashing through the underbrush until they reached the base of the ridge. Hours later, they emerged from the forest, disheveled and shaken but alive. Locals at a nearby general store listened to their story with solemn faces, exchanging knowing glances. "You were on that ridge?" an older man asked, his voice heavy with foreboding. "That's Stalker's territory. No one goes up there anymore." The legend of the ridge suddenly felt far too real. Though Sam and Chloe escaped, the memory of the towering figure, the deafening roar, and the oppressive presence of the forest would never leave them. The Blue Ridge Mountains held secrets that neither was eager to uncover again.